Hello, everybody. My name is Vasanth. I am a master mariner, presently working with HIMT College, Kalpag. The topic which I chose to discuss with you all today is about the container ships. When I talk about container ship, I mean the different generations of container ship over a period of 50 years and how it revolutionized the container trade. Now, let us start from the beginning, how it all started. How did the container ships gain popularity? In the 20th century, shipping industry saw a vast development and changes in trade pattern, giving it a different look. The responsibility of the cargo lies with ship owners until it was delivered to its rightful owners in the same condition as it was loaded. For that very reason, the officer on board the ship must load, stow, secure, and deliver cargo safely to its client. This can be achieved successfully if the officer is well aware of the layout of the ship, the property of the cargo to be carried, lifting appliances like the cranes, modern ship's equipment and techniques, applicable national and international regulations, follow good seamanship practices, and finally, guidelines given in corresponding codes, terms, and conditions of carriage. Now, before we start the container ships, let us go to what are the types of the ship which existed before the container ships. Before the container ship came to exist, there was general cargo ship in the 1940s and 50s. Now, what is general cargo ship? General cargo vessels carry packaged items like chemicals, foods, furnitures, machinery, motor, and military vehicles, footwear, garments, etc. They come in all sizes, and because of this, there used to be a lot of broken stowage within the compartment. General cargo vessels usually consist of twin deck or a double twin decker, making it easy for segregation of cargo between different types of cargoes, which mostly consist of finished products. Because of the lower hold and twin decks, the lower holds can be made used to carry bulk cargo in limited quantities. Now let us study how the history of the shipping containers created. The history of the shipping container was created in 1956. The first commercially successful container ship was Ideal X, which is a T2 tanker owned by Mr. Malcolm McLean, which carried 58 metal containers between Newark, New Jersey, Houston, Texas, on its first voyage. The photograph, what you see, is a photo of Malcolm McLean. Now, how did Mr. McLean start? So, in 1955, McLean built his company, McLean Trucking, into one of the United States' biggest freighter fleet. He purchased the small Pan-Atlantic Steamship Company from Waterman Steamship and adapted its ships to carry cargo in large uniform metal containers. See, on the right-hand side, you can see a cargo ship loading containers. So that's how the first generation of containers started. When it was started, on April 26, 1956, the first of converted tanker container vessel, the name Ideal X, left the port, New York in New Jersey, and a new revolution in modern shipping resulted. There, on the right-hand side, you see the photograph of the first container ship which is converted from a tanker ship. So the first generation container traded between 1955 to 1970 had a carrying capacity of 500 to 800 TEUs. Now, even though the container was there between 1950 to 1970, the general cargo was still popular. Why? Because even though the containers were introduced in 1956, it was not popular initially as general cargo was historically carried in dry cargo vessel without any particular specialization. There you are the right-hand side, you can see a typical general cargo ship where a lot of general cargo will be dumped in. In the 1960s and 1970s, the general cargo ships did not give way to the containers. So general cargo continued its market and shipping companies like Scindia's, India Steam Shipping Company, P&O and Blue Funnel were running with huge profits with general cargo ships, and container ships were finding difficult to enter into the market. Now, in spite of all this, the main drawback these general cargo ships had those days were that there used to be a lot of cargo damage due to the odd shapes of the cargo compartment. There used to be a lot of broken stowage, hence loss of freight by volume, too much time taken for loading and unloading as lot of labor were involved. Lot of spillage of cargo during loading and unloading of cargo on a general cargo ship. And there used to be a lot of cargo pilferage. Later, with the invention of container ships, where most of these cargo were stuffed inside the container and damages were minimal. But the problem faced by containers at that time was the securing arrangement to prevent them from shifting during sea passage. There you can see on your right-hand side, at berth, it's a typical general cargo ships those days, loading containers. So that these containers were loaded and secured with a proper securing arrangement. So hence, there was a lot of risk carrying container on general cargo ships. Because of this, in 1968, the ISO standardized this invention as a standard box. The box was identified as 20 feet length, 8 feet breadth, and 8 feet 6 inches. From then on, ships were then completely redesigned around the dimensions of boxes. Shipping costs plummeted, and it now became cheaper to manufacture goods on the other side of the world because shipping became cheaper. Since then, it has revolutionized ports, railway, and road networks, ships, cities, and countries all over the world. The shipping container has been the single biggest catalyst of globalization. Then came the second generation. That is very important. The second generation of container known as cellular ship. What is cellular ship? Second generation came into force between 1970 to 1980, made in shipyard to exclusively carry cargo of container ships only. These ships had permanent arrangements like cell guides for securing the containers in place and the introduction of cargo securing manuals, making the carriage of containers safe. This was the beginning of the end for the old type of general cargo ships. The capacities of these containers were in between 1,000 to 1,500 TEUs. The advantages of container ships. The main advantages are where they can be used to transport a wider range of products. They offer transportation versatility. They offer lower transportation costs, easy stowage, optimal safety and security, that is less pilferage of cargo, numerous logistic companies to work with. Following the second generation of cellular containers, the third generation, known as Panamax, became famous. When it became famous was these ships were introduced during the 1980 as the how it became famous because as the growing economy rapidly pushed the needed larger container ships to lower the operating cost, the Panamax ships were made keeping in mind that they can cross Panama Canal with the capacity of 4,000 TEUs. This generation of ships dominated the trade from 1980 to 1988. The length of these vessels were between 250 to 250 to 290 meters of length. Following the third generation was the fourth generation post-Panama ships. These ships were introduced in 1988, known as post-Panama ships, had 4,500 TEUs capacity and a width of 32.2 meters, which was the width requirements of Panama Canal at that time. The length of these ships were between 275 to 305 meters. Following the fourth generation was the fifth generation, known as post-Panamax ships. These post-Panamax ships came in 1996 with the container capacity of 6,500 TEU were introduced. These were not long, but were wider for more efficient. As time passed, containers with 8,000 TEU mark and length 335 meters length were introduced with deeper draft have started sailing. Following the fifth generation came the sixth generation known as Suezmax or VLCS. From the year 2006, a drastic changes were witnessed in the container ship construction of very large container ships. Very large container ships were introduced with a capacity of 11,000 to 14,000 TEUs, approximate 400 meters, so that they can cross Suez Canal safely. Also in the sixth generation of the Suezmax were EMA Mercs, which came into fame because of its length and TEUs in 2006. Then came the new Panamax ships. In the year 2016, as the new extended Panama Canal was inaugurated, container ships with the carrying capacity of 12,500 TEU were introduced to cross the new canal with the length of up to 366 meters length. Following that, post-Suezmax was also introduced. These ultra large container ships in 2013, a further extension of the Suezmax design led to the introduction of ultra-large container ships class 19,000 TEU to 21,000 TEUs. These are 400 meters long. The Triple E class by Maersk ships were the first to reach this mark. Then lastly, we have Malacca Max. Concept ships. These are ships that designed but not yet built and are on paper only. They can go up to the length of 500 meters, which will become the longest ships in the world with the capacity of 25,000 TEUs. Feeder vessels. What are feeder vessels? These are small capacity vessels having the first two digits indicates the capacity of 1,000 TEUs. As the name suggests, these type of vessels are suitable for feeder service to mother vessels. It will feed cargo to mother vessels, which will not make to small ports due to their sizes. That is, from smaller ports to larger ports or from larger ports to smaller ports. Now let us start about Indian containers ports. India has 12 major ports. However, the country lacks a landside mega port and terminal infrastructure to deal with ultra-large container ships. Hence, nearly 75% of Indian transport shipment cargo is handled at ports outside India, mainly Colombo, Singapore, and Klang. So ports in India handle feeder vessel only, thus making India goods slightly expensive in international market. Mother vessel. Mother vessels are big in size as compared to feeder vessels. They are usually bounded for international trade to serve between major big ports. These mother vessels varies from 2,000 to 21,000 TEUs. They visit major ports and larger distances compared to feeder vessels. In this connection, the Visakhapatnam International Seaport, Thiruvananthapuram, gateway to the Indian Ocean. This port is India's first deep water mega container transshipment port, which is under construction and not yet come into force. This is the only port in India where the large mothership can dock. The larger motherships require a 700-meter berth to approach, and 817-meter berth is being built in the first phase at Visakhapatnam, Kerala. Currently, Singapore, Colombo, and Salalah ports have the capacity to receive such large vessels. It is proposed by the end of 2024, this port will be commissioned. And coming to the conclusion, container ships in the range of 5,000 to 8,000 TEUs are most flexible in terms of the port they can access and the market they can service, since larger vessels cause fewer port calls. However, VLCS will cause a better service for the same distance, providing larger saving in fuel and operation cost. Therefore, the limit of economy to stay in container trade are much more limited in commercial attributes than technical constraint. So, coming to the conclusion, briefly, I have explained to you about the different generations of container over a period of 50 years, and also the revolution of container trade in the shipping market. With this, I conclude. Thank you very much. Over and out.